So hello everybody. Everybody hear me well? Yeah, good. So I'm really glad to be here. It's my first time in Korea. So I live in San Francisco, but I'm originally French. So I'm really happy that we won the World Cup. So yeah, so that's the first thing. And I saw the match in Korea with just one other friend. Yeah, thank you very much. But I also really thank Korea to have beat Germany, right, for the World Cup. So thank you very much for that. Yeah. So I will be making 3 talks today. The first talk will be more about, it's a talk I give to C-level, so CTOs, CIOs, CEOs of the Fortune 1000 companies over the world. It's mostly about API business strategy and IT transformation. The second talk will be more technical. It's about API governance, API management, protocols, formats, and everything. And after, the last talk would be more industry specific about banking APIs and open banking and fintech, right? So that will be the 3 talks that we will talk about today. If you have any question, raise the hand and you can ask the question in Korean, someone will translate in English, and if you speak English well, you can ask the question in English, right? So yeah, don't hesitate. We are a lot of people here, but it would be great to have a discussion, right? So yeah, so a little bit about who I am. So my name is Mehdi Medjaoui. I'm the lead API economist of the API Academy. So the API Academy is a team, a research team about business APIs and technical aspects of APIs, API architecture. And we're 4 people, and we travel the world to talk about APIs and microservices and architecture. Last year, Mike Amundsen, my colleague, was here. Now it's me, and who knows who will be next year, right? So a quick poll: who has a more business background in the room? Yeah, some people. So I expect everybody else is more technical. And who is more a developer? Right. So okay, some developers, and who is more architect? Yeah, some other people, right? Okay, it's fine. So we will begin. So I've been lead API economist, as I said. I'm also the founder of API Days conferences. It's the main conference on APIs. We do this conference in Australia. We do it in San Francisco, in Paris, in Berlin, in London. So we do 7 a year in many places. And this is the most thought leadership conference about the business of APIs and the technical aspect of APIs. I've been the founder of OAuth.io, so a backend as a service for OAuth protocol that has been acquired last year. So this is when I joined CA, right, in last September. And I also write industry reports, and I design the API industry landscape. It's a kind of a gathering of all API tools, API products, API companies, right? And we'll see that later, right? So yeah, I live with APIs, I eat APIs, I wake up with APIs. So yeah, I hope I will transmit my passion to you today. So few things, everybody knows what are APIs and everything, but I want to already put you in the business context. So the like button is powered by an API, the like button on Facebook. But the most important thing here I want you to feel about is that it's Facebook outside Facebook. So if you open APIs to third parties, to an ecosystem, you can be bigger than your own company, than your own application, right? You can scale and spread over the web and the digital space to collect data or to monetize assets, right? So APIs can be really used in that ways. If you open them, you will export your IT systems into other people's IT systems, right? So that's also it's a technical aspect, but that's also a really important business aspect, right? Because when you take positions and other people's systems, then you have kind of real estate, right? So you have power, right? You have power. Right? Another explanation I like, it's about the Siri application. So you know the Hey Siri, what's the best Korean restaurant in Seoul, right? Oh yeah, sometimes some Siri answer the question. So yeah, when you ask that, actually your voice is sent on the web by an API transformed into text. And your text is sent by an API to a natural language processing service, sent by an API to a restaurant database like Yelp, TripAdvisor, or whatever, and then sent to another Google Maps or Map API and everything. So at the end, it's between 80 and 100 APIs that are orchestrated together, right, on Siri, right? And then the final request is transformed into text and transformed into voice thanks to the first API, right? And all that happens in a few seconds. So the second thing I wanted to share here is that APIs enable to lower the cost of integration for making more advanced orchestrated applications. So when you are able to orchestrate 80 to 100 APIs, actually the service behind and you orchestrate them thanks to their APIs, you are able to make really advanced application, really valuable application. So if you have open APIs, you can make your company bigger and your product bigger than they are. Right? If you orchestrate APIs and the service behind, you can make application more valuable and the company product more valuable, right, in the digital world. Right? So two ways to think about APIs as a business incentive and the business power. So I use, as introduction, but I use 5 metaphors to explain APIs for C-levels, CEOs and CIOs. And even if you, as I said, if you know what are APIs, these metaphors can open your mind, so stay with me on that. The first one is communication. Right? So I often use the restaurant menu as the metaphor. So a restaurant menu is a list of potential requests that you can order in the kitchen, right, to be prepared for you, right? So it's really like when the waiter comes, you make him or her a request, right? He goes back in the kitchen, your request is assembled, all the ingredients are cooked and everything, and then it's structured, and then it goes back on the table fresh and hot, right? So really this request response model, right? This is actually how API works, right? And how web API works with this client-server model, right? So APIs, you can see them as a list of applicable capabilities that you can directly order, right, between two applications. So it's not only a communication mechanism, it's also an abstraction mechanism. So I will ask you a question here. Who knows how works a microwave behind the scenes, the physics of a microwave? Who knows in the room? I'm waiting the translation. Right? Nobody? Actually, it's great because we don't care. It doesn't matter, right? The most important is the interface. Is the interface where we will actually push buttons or put power and time and everything, right? That's the most important. And if we change the technology, we will not change the interface. So now, for architects and developers, what does that mean? It means that if you design the interface, the API, towards the use case and not towards the implementation, you will be able to change the implementation and not breaking the APIs. Right? So that's the new model of API thinking, is designing the interface towards the use case and not towards the implementation. And that's a new paradigm in the software building. Right? For some of you it may be obvious, but for many architects and developers it's not. Right? It's not, and it has been in the past like that. Right? Actually, for people who don't know, the physics behind a microwave, actually it heats the water inside the ingredients, right? It vibrates, it sends waves who vibrates like the water molecules, and then this is why it heats the water in the ingredients. It doesn't heat directly the ingredients, right? No. But we can change the technology, we will probably not change the interface, right? The third thing I wanted to share with you is APIs are a representation model, right? So this is a famous painting from René Magritte, which is a Belgian painter. So he said, this is not a pipe, right? And why this is not a pipe? Because it's a representation of a pipe. It's a drawing of a pipe, right? You cannot smoke that, right? You can if you roll the thing, but actually, yeah. So the thing in all representations are wrong, you know? For example, on a spherical map, you know, the world map, when we actually trying to make a plan, you know, so everything at the pole is completely, has a completely different shape, right? So Greenland, for example, or North Pole or South Pole seems huge, right? Seems completely huge because it's completely disturbed by the fact that it's a representation. But actually, it's a useful representation because on the map we know, actually, it's made for navigators because this map enables to conserve the angles. So if you draw two lines on the map we know, the Mercator map, right, the map we know, angles are conserved for navigators. So it's wrong, but it's useful for navigators, right? And this is why it has been made. So being wrong is not a problem as long as you know why it's wrong and you know what it's made of. It's made for. So yeah, but if you want to learn the exact size of continents and countries, this is wrong, right? But if you're a navigator, this is good and useful. So yeah, so APIs can be wrong but useful, right? Interface can be wrong and useful. So that's what I want us to learn now. So this is a 3 representation of the USA, right? Which are all different. So on the left, it's more the weather, right? The yellow, the more yellow it is, the more dry it is. The more blue and it's more rain, right? On the middle, it's the route and highways. On the right is for the classic administrative map, right? But the most important here is that it's the same data probably in the database, but 3 representation. They are all incomplete. Not all of them show all the data, but they show a specific representation of the data to be useful, right? On the left, it may be useful for a farmer. In the middle, for a truck driver. And on the right, maybe for school students, right? Again, representations, right? Even they are all wrong, they can be useful, and they can represent actually what you want to, the system you want to build. So I take this example with Michelin. You know, it's Michelin, the tire company, right? Or Goodyear, Bridgestone, or whatever. So Michelin sell tires, right? They sell tires to us, and we buy tires for cars, right? But for B2B, they have a different representation of their business model, right? For B2B, to your mind, what do they sell? They still deliver tires, but they do not sell tires, right? Yeah, I see some people maybe thinking about it. Yeah, they sell mileage. They sell a number of miles or kilometers. They don't sell directly the price per tire, right? And actually that's great, because like that, you can ask engineers to make the best tires possible, and so the customer will pay the number of miles, and you will not replace the tires, right? Before, there were not, the business model and the customer incentive were not aligned, because Michelin has to make tires who breaks after 2 years, right? And so they were asking engineers to make average tires, right? And the customer were not happy to change tires every 2 years, right? So by aligning business model with technology, you can ask from engineers best results, so they work on better technology, right? And they completely use their potential, and you can make the customer happy. So this is a little bit what comes with APIs, right? Because you open APIs to serve customers, maybe you will have to invest more resources to do great software. Create APIs which are well documented, which are powerful, which are resilient, which are well designed, which are scalable, right? Which are deployable easily, right? So yeah, so now it's time to make the engineers work with the same incentive than the customer, right? And not just maintain systems, right? Maintaining systems is not the funniest part to do, right? So for the mining industry, they don't sell only the mileage. They sell a number of tons, so weight, and mileage. Oh, we guarantee you that these tires can deliver 1,000 tons over 1,000 kilometers. Right? And for planes, tires for planes, you may have guessed, they sell a number of landings. Because a plane who is on repair, who needs to change tires, is a plane who is losing money. Right? So the plane has to be less time on the ground. So companies now prefer buy landings than buying tires, right? So because they know that they will know the price and the cost of the tires over time, right? So you can play with representation with business, and you can play with IT, right? We'll see that later. So the last metaphor is composition. So like the Siri application. So we often consider APIs as Lego bricks, right? That if they are well designed, they are Lego bricks that you can plug with each other to make advanced application. But the most important thing I want you to see here is the shadow, right? So it's a real Lego advertisement, right? Actually, when you build a Lego brick, right? Well, actually, you're the children or the adults who play Legos, right? They see the shadow of the brick in their own word, in their own context. And that's the same with APIs and interfaces, right? They have to be expressed in the customer context, in the user context. So here, you see a plane, some may see a bird, whatever you want. But yeah, even if we build bricks, neutral technological bricks delivered through APIs, people will use them in their own context. So this is why you have to think also representation, but also composition. Because if you have the same APIs for all of them, it will be easy to plug them with each other to make advanced application. Right? One important point here, for business, we often mix the API and the service behind. For example, we say payment API. So when we say payment API, we mix the both, right? But the technical people here and everybody, the API is really the interface, the service is the service, right, for the API. But what's great is that because the API is towards the use case, towards other systems, if you change the service, right, here, and you remove it with another one, you will not break the API, you will not break the integration. So again, design the APIs towards the capability, not towards the implementation, right, towards the service. So many times people made APIs that were really coupled with the service they were representing, and so it was really hard to change, right? All the people who bought SAP software or this kind of software, right, where the API was tied with the implementation, right, have issues to move from other systems. Don't say it's good or bad, just to say when they want to change to other systems, it's too coupled, right? So let's take an example with Uber. So I've learned that Uber is forbidden now in Korea, but let's say any riding system, right? Or at the time when it was allowed. So if Uber will be 9 bricks, right? 9 APIs that talk together, right? Right. Actually, Uber is many hundreds of services and APIs, right, working together. But depending on how you may design it, you can reduce it to the number of APIs you want, right? So I made this exercise. So what is it? It's maps to know where they are, right? Geocoding to transform a position into address and address into position. Payment, SMS and call, right? They have a user database and service, driver database and service, invoicing service, pricing, pricing matching algorithm, right? You know exactly how much you will pay, and rating drivers, right? So yeah, you can. I would not say it's easy, but you can replicate a service like a riding share application like Uber quite fast. And the thing is here is that these ones are external APIs, external services delivered by APIs, right? So for maps, it's Google Maps. For payments, it's Stripe. For SMS calls, it's Twilio, right? And for geocoding, it depends. It can be Google or Yahoo or others, right? So the most important here is because the cost of integration is going down to a lower level, now there is an opportunity to integrate other services. And we will see that has a lot of implication on business. The last one is delivery. right? The last metaphor is delivery. So this is a shipping container, right? So this is a shipping container. Actually, the shipping container, because of the standardization and because of the whole industry embraced the standard, it reduced the cost of shipping up to 96% in average per product, right? So actually, it made the world completely flat. We could produce anywhere, and we could import goods almost at no cost, right? We could produce in another country where the cost of work was cheaper, and we could re-import the products, right? So this made the globalization, like the complete globalization has been provided by the container, not by something else, right? And actually, what does that mean? That means that if we consider APIs as a delivery mechanism like containers, the cost of integration is really going down because we have more common practices, we have more standards. So it will be easier to import third-party services, right, or to integrate other IT systems in our system, right? It's a trend, right? It's a trend. But just to say that more and more standards, it will cost a lot less. So what Uber did before, with the 4 APIs, it will go over and over more and more and more, right? And that will make more IT system more agile and everything. So you can see APIs as a delivery mechanism that lower the cost of integration a lot, right? So another idea about delivery is that now we are in a digital world, right? So now you need websites to expose data or services. You need mobile apps. You may have some digital assistant, IoT applications, devices. You may also want to integrate in third-party application or third-party platforms or marketplace and others, right? And actually, if you redo always the same work for each application, you are spending a lot of money on development, right? So the idea is also what we call API-first architecture, right, which is a delivery also mechanism, is that if you make an API layer, right, where all the application can be tied directly with this API, you may have a lot of savings on development costs, right? So because now development cost is really expensive. But you have a trade-off. Now you have many applications who point into the same infrastructure. So you may have to handle new infrastructure costs and problems. But let's say now, because of cloud technologies, infrastructure is cheaper than development and more available than development and humans building code, right? So sharing resources with the now infrastructure can be a lot more agile than making many applications because of the development time for software developers because really high and is not available. So we have an example with the French National Railway Company. So I'm French, so we are good at football, but we're bad on APIs at some point. So for example, they don't have this API-first strategy. So what happens? When the train timetable on the website is different than the mobile app, right? And it's different than third-party integrations, right? That is actually different than the train coming, right? The real time, right? So if now they're transitioning to an API-first strategy to have the same data across all the systems. Right? So to sum up this first part, but let's say APIs have 3 tastes. There are 3 different contracts. Right? For the developer, it's a way to make IT systems to connect together and communicate in an automated and programmable way. For the architects, it's a technical contract that enable to enable clients to know the promise that we're delivering and that you will serve that promise in the future. And for business people, it's like a Lego brick, right? It's like the shadow of the Lego brick. It's a business capability thought as an API, right? That can be integrated in other people systems. Right? Okay. So everybody can have their own vision about APIs, and we will see in a second talk how we make these people work together. So in 2002, so this is the richest man in the world with $100 billion in assets, right? At least, maybe there are richer people, but we don't know them, right? This is public knowledge, right? But yeah, so he has and in 2002, so Jeff Bezos from Amazon, in 2002 he sent that email to all employees, right? I don't know if you can read, but he said, all team will expose the data through service interfaces. Team must communicate with each other through these interfaces, so it's an obligation. There will be no other form of inter-process communication, no reads of another team data store, no shared memory model, no backdoors. Like, we have to publish APIs on top of every service we build, right? The most important here is there. All service interfaces, without exception, must be designed from the ground up to be externalizable. That doesn't mean they need to be externalized. But to be externalizable, that means that at some point, if a customer one day asks to use our internal services, our APIs will be ready for them to integrate like tomorrow. Because we do the hard work of making it internally, because we document APIs, because we design them, because we monitor them, right? Because we have a good access control, we will be ready to open tomorrow, right? That is to say, team must plan and design to be able to expose the interface to developer, no exception. And that for every services. Because we never know, right? So we will do the job of making great software internally for our colleagues and collaborators and other teams. And maybe one customer will want it, right? Anyone who doesn't do this will be fired. That's really hard. Thank you, have a nice day. That's really passive aggressive, right? But actually, 2 years later, they were having a lot of problems on their own infrastructure. So they made a great infrastructure that 2 years later they opened as Amazon Web Services. And now it's the most profitable part of Amazon, right? And they opened Amazon Web Services to others. Not me at the time because they were the best. They were really good. But there were other players. But because they had the best APIs, so they were ready. They were drinking their own champagne, as we say, right? They were using that infrastructure for themselves with great APIs, documentation, platforms, testing, monitoring. So they could open it to others. And so others could trust them about using their infrastructure, right? So again, it's not to open, but it's to be ready to open. That's the big change. That's the big change. So now you understand the concept of private APIs. So it's APIs which are designed to be used internally for now. And now your concept of partner APIs, where it needs to be used by few people, or public APIs, which are mostly made to be used by anybody, right? And so today on the web, right, we have probably a lot of public APIs, but actually the big wave will be the API, the internal APIs, right? Companies having thousands and thousands of services that will communicate via APIs, right? So this is the number of public APIs that we monitor by hand, right? I know that's weird, but we don't have yet a search engine for APIs because APIs are behind firewalls most of the time, and we don't let search engine scroll them, right? That's the number of public APIs, but actually the big mass will be on private APIs, enterprise APIs, which are not open. And actually we estimate them in a few years to be in the dozens of millions. I work a lot with a lot of banks. They already have 10,000 services, for some 15,000, that they will transform into, they will make APIs on top of them to communicate. So that will be really a lot. On the 10,000, not all will be open, but if 50 or 100 or 200 are open and make outstanding business, yeah, that's great, right? You just need one to be successful, right? One really great. So you understand now, if you are a company, you provide APIs, you are an API provider. And your API will be consumed by API consumers, right? But what happened is that now, as API provider, you may use API from others. So you understand here, this is a contract, and this is a contract, and this is the supply chain management, like the data supply chain, the service supply chain, right? So if I break here, it may break also this application, right? So now systems are more tight with each other, right? Like a lean supply chain way, right? So this is why APIs are great, but they need also to be well managed to be successful. So this is a photo of a car, right? And all the pieces of a car. I will just ask you a question to your mind, and good points for the one who knows. How many pieces in average in a car, right? It's a Toyota number. Right? Who thinks there are less than 10,000? Yeah. Who thinks there are between 10 and 20,000? Yeah, a few people. Who thinks between 20,000 and 30,000? Who thinks more than 30,000? Actually, 30,000. So in average. So it's a Toyota number, but it's all the nuts and bolts and all the small pieces, right? And actually what happens is that a car manufacturer actually doesn't build many of the pieces. He has hundreds of suppliers who each of them build one or a few pieces, and his role is to assemble them, right? His role is to assemble them, to orchestrate them, like Siri, right? The 80 to 100 APIs together, right? So, if we go further, the value of a car is 40% at the design and conception, 40% at the distribution and sales. The assembly of a car, the transport and assembly, is only 20%. So the value is mostly at the conception and the sales and distribution, right? So it will be the same for software, right? It will be the same for software. So this is a good, for example, let's say it's a map direction GPS API, direction APIs. Let's say this is a payment API, this is an email, this is SMS, this is payment, this is whatever, right? And so you understand that the role of IT tomorrow will be to use internal assets to conceive applications and mix it with other APIs to make advanced application, right? So this is what I call the axiom of the API economy, is that organization will provide their core competencies by APIs. So they will concentrate on what they do the best, right? And they will open APIs for others to use it, right? To maybe pay for that or have other business models, right? And they will consume the core competencies of others in their system to support their core business. So everybody's core business will be supporting someone else's core business, right? And that's a circle, right? That's the B2B sharing economy, right? Or renting economy, right? So actually that happens in industry, right? Everybody specializes in one pieces that support another people mechanism, right? And every mechanism supports others, right? So that's but now it happens in the digital space really, really fast, right? And it happens really fast and at really low price. So just an example, Amazon S3 for the storage, they reduced price 60 times over the last 10 years. So 60 times over 120 months. That means every 2 months they reduce price. They knock at the door of customers and say, hey, we've reduced price, right? So it's going really, really down. The cost of software is going really, really down. And this is why this, like the container, integrations will be more favorable in the future. So this is why you have to think about APIs to be part of that business. So this is the diagram. So you have your external services, right? External APIs that you make into your production process. Internal APIs, services, monolith, microservices, right? And you make them communicate via APIs. And when there is an opportunity, you open to partners or to public to monetize or to make business development or to increase the spread, right? Like the like button, right? Or a marketplace, for example. Right? So that's really the idea that IT people need to think about. So on the marketing, let's see what happens on the company side. On marketing, so this is a classic market share, right? Depending on the market, you may have a market share, right? And actually, if you want to conquer new business, you will spend a lot of time You will spend a lot of time and resources because offers are known, right? Products are almost the same, right? So actually, in the digital world, what you can do, you can open APIs, right? And you expand the market on new use case that actually were not thought before, or that you could not build yourself because you didn't have the resources. Now you can open and let people come and use your assets the way they want to explore their market, right? So this is Amazon Web Services, right? But on a just marketing strategy, this is also the microwave strategy, right? You know, so because most of the microwave founders, right, they were here, and they thought that they would take over the complete cooker, right? Cooker market. They say, oh, we will replace cookers, right? No, but actually, what happens, and I'm sure in Korea it's the same. Everybody has a cooker and a microwave, right? So yeah, so they expanded the market. That's possible, right? They on the sales side, for salespeople, APIs enable also to have a self-service distribution mechanism, right? So this is a cold sales funnel, right? This is a funnel. Customer comes in, right, and they go there. Some flows, but they go there, and then they go down, and then they pay, right? So that's the idea. So salespeople make a lot of calls, and when people are not targeted, they spend a lot of time, right? But if you reverse the cycle in self-service, you wait for people to make the first API integration, and so they're more closer to be customer, right? More closer to be partner, right? So now you can call them after first integration, because you have the analytics, you know what they're doing, right? Thanks to API management and developer portals. You know what they're doing, and so you can call them to talk about more advanced integrations, right? So that saves time, and salespeople love when their time is valuable, right? Like everybody, but yeah, mostly salespeople, because time is money. So for IT, the new role, the APIs are changing the way IT is thinking, right? So the role of IT before was to control data, control corporate data, here, make it secure, make it available, make it clean, right? And then to build enterprise application. So controlling the data, securing it, making enterprise application. Now, the role of IT in the API-driven business and API-driven architecture is to control the data, secure the data, make it clean, but also now to define policies for data use, like guidelines, data guidelines, data policies, API guidelines, build and maintain a lot of APIs, like the bricks, right? And then build applications made of the bricks, or letting others build with these bricks, right? You know, so that's the new way to think IT, right? For CIOs and CTOs. So what does that mean? If you think the brick before the apps, what does that mean? So this is a classic, let's say, software application building, right? So what happens is that you build one application for one country and one product. You build one application for the same country for another product. And again, another application for the same product in another country, right? So you have a lot of silos, right? And these communication don't talk to each other, right? That's a lot of non-reusable software. So if you build brick by brick, right, what has happened? You have this ecosystem, this garden, this landscape of services or microservices, and they all communicate via APIs, right? They all communicate via APIs all together. And you orchestrate them to deliver the same application logic. But what happened is that the non-reusable components are a lot smaller. Here, at the maximum, it can be just UI elements, right? Just UI elements. And all the core bricks are here, right? All the core capabilities, right? And this is more reusable. And actually, what can be possible, right, is that one or few microservices or services enabled by APIs can be a micro market tomorrow. It can be a big market the day after, right? They can be really valuable. This is what we call API as products. So I will just take a few examples. So these companies are API as products. They are just companies providing APIs. So Twilio is a telecommunication API, which is known for its great design. Stripe is a payment API, right, known for its design. So Twilio and Nexmo are telecommunication. Stripe and Braintree are payments. SendGrid is for email. Algolia is for search engine, right? But just an example, Stripe, 7 years ago, it was 7 endpoints. So it's almost a microservice, right? When you have 7 endpoints, right, to do payments, right? And then they grew up. It was so well designed, so easy to integrate. They added features and everything, right? Now it's a company that's worth $10 billion, right? They were just microservices at the time, right? So maybe you had these services here already. And just to tell you, all of the banks of the world had payment services at the time, right? All the banks of the world. But they were so complex, so difficult to use, with an onboarding process, a legal process that was so hard, with a poor experience, that a company like Stripe, with 2 brothers, right, 23 and 24 years old, could completely take over the market. Twilio did the same for telcos. Twilio was 5 API calls, 5 endpoints. Like send SMS, receive SMS, make a call, receive a call, something like that, right? It was just 5 API endpoints, and now it's a $5.2 billion company at the New York Stock Exchange, right? So yeah, so a microservice with great API open tomorrow. If you think it as a product, it can lead to a successful business, but you need to support the marketing and the technology of this. Nexmo has been acquired a few hundred millions. Braintree, it's a payment API that has been acquired $800 million by PayPal. So PayPal was making a payment API with a design that was going bad and bad over time. So they acquired another payment API to reshape the design and have traction, right? So the design of the API is really important, right? And in the digital world, where everything is flat, the cheapest integration will win sometimes over the best integration, right? So you have to think really cheap integration. When I say cheap, is that with a low cost of integration, the best experience, the best design, the best tools for integrating, right? So in the landscape, here I reference approximately 200 API as a product, right? So Stripe is here, Twilio is here, but you can see there are a lot of ecosystems, right? And you will have a copy of it, right? A PDF copy of it. But yeah, so many of them are API as a product. So again, these companies have internally all the assets to open and maybe make new markets tomorrow. But even if they don't, internally they can have successful achievements that we will see in the second talk about like being more agile, reuse more things internally, delivering better APIs for product teams to deliver faster products. Also are participating in the same thing. So what does that mean? If you go back and you think into apps, like if you think into silos, right? If you still think into silos, so this is actually how it works. The cost of the software goes up, and the value is still 0 unless the app is out. So when the app is out, the value is reached the end. But what happens here is that the cost increase, and here, what happens is that, I would say here, everybody knows the project is going in the wrong way, right? Up here. Everybody knows, the manager knows, the employee knows, the developer knows that the project is going the wrong way. It took 2 years, and the market has changed, right? But it's impossible to go back. It's impossible to go back because we are committed. So many money has been involved. So what happens is that we hire more developers, which we try to go fast, to finish, but actually developers need to communicate more, so it takes even longer, and then the project is a failure, right? That happens in many big companies, right? I work with a lot of banks. In every bank I've seen, it has worked like that, right? So if you have this API first idea, so just to tell you, this is the risk. This is the project risk, right? The size of the risk of the project. If you have an API first architecture and API first business, right? The idea is that, the idea is that you will build brick by brick, right? First brick, first API, first service powered by an API, microservice powered by an API, right? Delivered by an API. And then you can have feedbacks at the first one. And then you can build a second one. You have feedbacks and everything, and you can open, right? It's a little bit like the agile methodology, right? When you say, if you want to build a car, don't build the forward of the car, the middle of the car, and the end of the car. But build a scooter because it works. You can sell it, you can learn. Then build a motorbike because you can still learn it, but it has an engine, so you learn to build a car, right? And then you build a car, right? So you've learned all the way with a working product, right? So that's the agile methodology, but now powered by APIs, right? And so it's less risk. And actually, here, if we made a mistake, the manager, it's easy to go back. It's a small mistake. So he's not committed because he put too much money. He can, by design, say, no, we made a mistake, let's go back here and let's redo it. You know? So yeah, so this is the idea of API first as an API first business and API first architecture, right? So by design, it's more resilient. And so if you compare it to risk, yeah, that's a big difference. So for the last 5 minutes we have, I will just explain what I call lean startup versus API first business, right? It's how, as big corporation can use API to counter startups, right? To counter startups, actually to work with startups to innovate better, but not being disrupted by startups, right? So how startups take over industries? We will take just one example, but it works with most of the bigger startups, right? So this is a classic value chain: infrastructure, assets, distribution, customer experience. So most of the big companies are really good here, right? And because they need to focus a lot here, because of regulation, because of technical problems, they focus less here, right? So often they do poor customer experience, poor application, right? It's also because they need to be more agile, and they're not agile because they focus on that, right? So what happens? Few application goes on the market. Few application goes on the market, and some have really good success, right? And some take over the complete customer experience. Why? Because it's cheap here. It's cheap just to make an app and steal customers from big players, right? You just make a cool application, social network, whatever, and then if you have success, you have millions of users, and then you have power, even with the big players who have issues to reach everybody, right? And some take the full customer experience, right? They are big players, or they are mainstream, and then they have their own distribution channel, right? They build their own distribution channel on their customer, their users, right? And then they build their own assets to be the platform, and then they go full stack. So just an example with, we can take Google, Facebook, Amazon, Airbnb, we can take Uber, we can take all these companies, they all work the same way, right? So I will just take one example with Amazon again, but again, it works with any of the companies, right? So Amazon just sell books in the US, right? And then they sell everything in the US. And then they sell everything in the world, right? By making a great e-commerce platform. At this point, they produce nothing. They just match people, right? Then they build their own distribution mechanism. They have their own logistics network. They have their own marketplace for sellers, right? Then they build their own assets. They have a lot of data, recommendation algorithm, right? They make Kindle, right? They make their own products, their own platforms. And after, they go full stack, right? Because they acquired Whole Foods, which is a supermarket, offline supermarket companies in the US. And even people think they will acquire a bank soon, and so they go full stack, right? But again, Facebook did the same. It was a tiny social network on university, Harvard. Then for all students, then for everybody, for all students in the world, then all the users, all the people in the world. Then they went into making their own advertisement platforms to their users. And then they were a platform by making games, opening APIs, Facebook Connect, and others, having their own assets, their own data. And now they want to go full stack because they, for example, they want to be internet provider, right? Every startup works the same, right? Every startup works the same who reach this size. So how big companies can counter that? At least work with that and avoid that at some point. So if companies invest in different API layers, like core APIs between infrastructure and assets, to be more agile and to be not dependent on existing implementation, right? If you have a big legacy system, make an API interface towards the implementation. And so little by little, you will be able to replace the monolith with microservices, right? But if you don't make the APIs towards the use case, but towards the implementation, you will break all the clients and it will be hard. Then you make process APIs, which are more business capable APIs that you can open to partners, right? And then you have new layers of APIs, which what we call experience APIs, which are really close to the customer, right? So for example, I've seen a bank who have a credit score API, so grade about a customer ability to pay a credit, right? But their experience API was just a traffic light, green, yellow, green, yellow, red, right? So this green, yellow, red doesn't give too much assets, it just gives the right information. The credit score here gives a lot of information. So this is really for selected partners or internal teams. This is for external partners, right? External and public, right? So if you open APIs, you will have a lot of startups and companies and partners that will develop with your own assets and your own data, right? So, and because you have API management, and I advise you to have API management, you will know exactly who is accessing to what kind of data and what kind of resource, how many times they're accessing it, where they're using it, in what type of application, right? And how many times they're using it, right? And what their use case. So you can have 100, 200, 300 companies that will work with your own assets to find markets for themselves. But as a big company, you can copy, right? You can copy, you can see what they're doing. You know exactly what they're using, what the data they're using from you. So now you can learn a lot, right? You can learn a lot, and actually you can fill the gap, right? So the idea, this is what we call not designing just IT systems, but designing business ecosystems. And actually, big corporation would be always good here, but not really good here. But if you build an ecosystem that is looking for many use cases in many countries with many of your assets, it will be faster for you to just copy here, right? And to reach the customer, right? Then, and you may have different strategy. You can reach the startup and partner, right? Or the partner or the company, right? That is using your APIs. You can invest in the startup or the company, right? You can be partner. You can create partnerships, right? Or joint ventures, because they found something valuable with your assets. You can copy, right? You can steal the idea of copy, right? And because it's your own asset, so you have more control. Or you can even tell them that it was great and you stop the contract, and that you want to exploit the opportunity yourself, right? Just to say, Google, Facebook, Twitter, they have cut their API access to many, many companies. So just to say, even if it looks weird, that's a business strategy that can also be applied, right? When the value is there, right? So that's a little bit what I wanted to share you for the first part, as API as a business strategy. And now we will see how to build little by little and how to manage the life cycle of these APIs in the second part. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate, right, to ask them, and else we'll have a pause. Yeah. One question here.
Can you please go back to the slide of the thing shows Uber thing.
Yeah.
Context from Uber.
Yeah. So yeah, I go there.
Yeah, I just wondered if the context is real, from real or.
No, so it's a representation. It's not the real. As I say, Uber, for example, have 100 of services.
Yeah. So just fourth left, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one there, it should be some bounded context, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Then I was wondering why the geocoding isn't included in that map.
So again, that's a representation I made with myself. But again, you can decide the context and you can decide how you bound it. Right? I totally agree with you. So the question is like, why the geocoding is not in the maps, right? That's what I made.
I understand. Then I have. I just wondered if you have certain rule of thumb to separate the bounded context from one to another.
So I don't remember who said that, but he said that a context should be bounded as much as, if I remember the quote, it's the next presentation, but should be as much, something as it makes sense. Of course, that doesn't help you here. But it also depends on the use case, right? So just an example, here, for some geocoding services, right? Oh, sorry. Some maps at some point are better than some geocoding services. So you may have to use different geocoding services per country, where you may use the same maps, right? So this is why sometimes it may be useful to decouple them, right? Because it can be different. So just an example on the payment. Actually, I put a payment here, but they have lots of payment services depending on the country, depending on the contract. So actually it's a payment here, but actually it's many payment breaks, right, in their system, right? Yeah. So you can decouple that the way the pricing here. I put the matching, the distance, and the surge price, but you can make 3 services, right? Depending how you think things are independent. One problem is that if you decouple too much, you have more things to manage, right? And I will just take one example, just a mathematical calculation. If you have 30 services at 99.99%, which is good SLA, right? Not great, not the banking grade, but that's okay, right? 99.99, but 30 services orchestrated together, right? That makes, at the end, 99.7%. So if you decouple too much, right, at some point, you're also fragilizing your infrastructure and performance. So sometimes don't hesitate to decouple less to reach your, let's say, requirement on the SLA in infrastructure. So it's always a trade-off, and it depends on the availability, performance, but it also depends on the business availability, right? You know, the fact that features are always available depending on the country or the context. But it's always a really hard design decision, just to tell you.
Thank you.
We had another question behind? No? You know what? Okay, so it's maybe time for the break. Yeah? Yeah? Good for the break? Yeah? So we go for